Hi, I'm Steve Morgan, and this is the first of three videos that I'm going to record, focused very much on the idea of what you need to have in place to support you in delivering positive risk taking. And I'm thinking about what you need that will help you to be clear and confident in those risk decisions that you're making. This first video I want to focus very much on what you need as an individual practitioner, and then in the second video I'll move on to look at what we need working together as part of teams and wider networks, working with other people. There'll be an overlap in some of those comments that emerge between those two videos. And then the third one, I want to focus on what do we need from the organisations? What do we need from senior management that will help us to be more confident and feel supported in making positive risk-taking decisions? So with this first one, thinking of ourselves as individual practitioners, a common theme throughout the video training that I'm presenting here is the importance of a person-centred approach. Bringing into our considerations of risk, we need to be thinking about the strengths of the individual person. We need to build up that overall picture of the individual person. So that's the first thing that I think is vitally important when we're approaching the idea of positive risk taking as an individual, as a practitioner, is that we need to reflect on our values, our principles, and think about what does a person-centred approach really mean to me? How am I delivering on that? How am I ensuring that when we're talking essentially about risk, that I am focused on that wider picture of strengths? I'm thinking much more about the whole person and not just drawn into the narrow funnel that challenging risk information will focus our attention on. If I think of an example from previous experience, without going into all of the details, but there's a lady with a very extensive history of suicide attempts and severe self-harming behaviour on a daily basis. All of the information that is usually presented through a risk assessment is going to be counterintuitive to the idea of positive risk-taking. But if we take a step back and look at that particular lady from the perspective of her role as a mother, the importance of her children to her, looking and digging deeper into periods of time when she's been at her best and what's been interesting to her, what's engaged her, then that gives us a much broader picture to work with. But most importantly about a person-centred approach, it is engaging. It's about us spending time engaging with that individual person. Okay, moving on to another element that we need in place, thinking of ourselves as individual practitioners. For some of us, it's about relinquishing some of that sense of I'm responsible for the decision. It's all about me, ultimately. It'll all come back on me. I'm thinking in particular experiences of a whole range of individuals, different professional backgrounds. Doctors in particular will be people who almost feel that sense of personal responsibility is placed on them as part of their role. But it's not just about doctors. This can be about team leaders, or this can be about senior members of teams who maybe are the dominant influences within the team. But it's about trying to take a step back, not see ourselves as being personally responsible in a way that we then ride roughshod over the information and the contributions of others. Staying with that sense of personal responsibility, it's also about personal accountability. So the third area I want to pick up on is being very clear as to what we are accountable for. We are parts of teams, that will be the next video, but within a collective decision that positive risk-taking essentially should be, each of us will take up responsibility for enacting parts of that decision. So we do have a professional responsibility, an accountability to what we're going to deliver within the overall jigsaw puzzle picture. It's important when we're taking on these challenging decisions that as individuals we're making ourselves aware of the most appropriate tools that will help us, accessing the most appropriate tools, and that's about good quality risk assessment. How do we bring that together? What tools are we using to analyse the information that we're gathering that is shaping our individual contribution to that wider picture of a team? But also that we're making ourselves aware of and accessing strengths assessment tools amongst others that help us to build that bigger picture of the individual, that we feel able as individuals to discuss and describe these tools with the people that we're working with. That's the service user and family members, not just other team members, and that we can share those tools so that we can help others to make best use of them in terms of contributing to the overall picture. As individuals, we should also, the fifth one I'll talk about is the importance of the timing of decisions. It could well be on a case-by-case basis that the time of day, that we know somebody is more alert and more able to engage in the whole conversation and the difficult decision making. For crisis services, you may not have that choice. A crisis happens when it happens, and people have to make decisions at that point in time. But then also when we're thinking about the timing, some of these decisions are days, thinking in terms of anniversaries, the anniversary of the death of a close loved one. That's another element where it is important for us to be aware of the timing of information, the timing of decisions, and how that might affect or influence somebody's involvement, or indeed elevate the risks in some situations. We're talking about positive risk taking, about being positive in terms of outcomes. That's the major part of the definition. So as we build up achievement, as we support service users and families to experience positive achievement, it's important as individuals that if we're the ones most connected with a family, with a person, that we spend the time to reflect back those positive achievements, but also engage the person to understand and build their own confidence based on what has been achieved through these challenging decisions. So positive risk taking going forward can be based on us individually being aware of what's been achieved and thinking about those resources that we can work with. And that also brings us to, as individual practitioners, we have a responsibility to access good quality supervision, good quality support. That should be part and parcel of what teams and organisations provide, but it is for us as individuals to try and seek that out and actively engage in our supervision. It's not something done to us, it's a collaborative process. Our supervision is our responsibility ultimately. Another responsibility I would say is individually we should be clear in how we contribute our creativity to the wider picture of discussion, to the wider picture of the analysis of information towards that decision. Thinking creatively, how do we do that from an individual basis that can provide a good example to engage the creativity of others when we're working in collaboration. And last but not least, I mentioned family and carers. They are vitally important in this whole picture. But when we're talking about positive risk taking as individuals, are we clear in how we communicate that information, what positive risk taking is, what it is in the context of what's going on for that person at the moment, and how it might impact on the wider family, but not just impacting, how do we engage the wider family to understand and support a person to take risks on the basis that everybody gains from achieving those positive outcomes. Which is a way of drawing this particular video to an end, because my usual reminder to you is to go out and support people to take risks for those particular positive outcomes that they can identify for themselves.